From best in the world secretly kissing goodbye in front of your very eyes, to certain champs not being able to disguise the fact they were done on their disappointed faces. These are those wrestlers that simply could not hide that they were on their way out. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 times wrestlers told you they were finished. Number 10, CM Punk 2023. We'd been here before. Not literally, of course. AEW hadn't run Wembley before. Samoa Joe and CM Punk hadn't had a 3.5-star match in a stadium before. Punk hadn't engaged in a full backstage fight with Jack Perry before. These things were new. The rest, sadly less so. Punk had dropped a bomb or 6 on All Elite Wrestling in the summer of 2022. And unbeknownst to most of one of the largest wrestling crowds in history, he'd played his part in another undetonated going off just minutes earlier. The fight with Perry and whatever else the Wembley cameras caught resulted in the cause Tony Khan spoke of when he fired him a week later. The Joe match was going to be the end of the road, and only the Punker knew as the classic unfolded. After playing heel to a crowd totally divided on his very presence, Punk turned the mid-match middle fingers into the I love you gesture as he departed following an epic win. It was about as fitting a farewell as could have occurred in hindsight, even if nearly 80,000 people didn't know they were really saying goodbye, for a few months at least. And now I've got a quick question for you. What was your favourite AEW CM Punk match? Was it this 3.5-star classic or something else? You let me know in the comment section down below. Number 9, Dean Ambrose 2019. We should have seen Jon Moxley coming, really. The iconic New Japan Pro Wrestling debut and subsequent G1 Climax run. The AEW Double or Nothing debut. The Take No Prisoners babyface on Dynamite that saw out 2019 as the next big opponent for All Elite Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion Chris Jericho, and rightful heir to his throne. We should have seen Jon Moxley coming because we certainly saw him going. Moxley might have been Dean Ambrose by name during the last days of his WWE tenure in early 2019, but the freedom of confirming that he wasn't long for the system clearly energized him in a way an Intercontinental title or Shield reunion no longer could. Hilarious in backstage bits with the likes of Seth Rollins when his preposterous 2018 heel turn was all but abandoned. If he didn't believe the lunatic fringe was leaving WWE behind, he outright told you, over and over again, until even Rollins and Roman Reigns gave up asking him to stay. Number 8, Big Cass 2018. As of 2024, the Big Cass Big Bill story is one of redemption and success. Thankfully, the setbacks in his personal life have only served to enhance the major strides forward in his professional one. A joy to behold as a weekly television character, Big Bill's charisma as a heel extends beyond his lofty height. Being 7 foot tall isn't the only thing you can't teach, and he's got lots of that particular intangible in the locker. It didn't look that way as his WWE run slumped to a grim conclusion in 2018. After an inexplicable separation from Enzo Amore and frustrating injury layoff soon after, he was thrust back into an awkward spot opposite Daniel Bryan as the American Dragon's first major singles opponent following his surprising return from a career-ending head injury. Hideously bad booking and matchmaking resulted in a couple of bang-average pay-per-view matches. Stuff just happened for years in the latter years of the Vince McMahon era, but the need for insufferable perfection resulted in it being easy to spot when a wrestler was not playing ball. Number 7, Jonathan Gresham 2022. It was easy to sympathize with Jonathan Gresham's situation when, after being trusted with the proverbial ball during possibly the most tumultuous period in Ring of Honor's history, he had it rather unceremoniously ripped from his hands by his new boss at said gaffer's first real opportunity. It was subsequently just as easy to see that he was less than impressed with the decision. Gresham had reunified the title in a match against Bandido at the first Tony Khan booked Ring of Honor pay-per-view in April 2022. However, he didn't make it out of the second one with the title intact. He didn't even close the show either. Gresham's loss to All Elite Wrestling newcomer Claudio Castagnoli was in the opening spot on the card, with the champion now working heel thanks to a turn that had taken place almost exclusively on Rampage. You could see the disappointment and annoyance with the booking written all over Gresham's face as he entered, and that was the point. Rather than arriving for this ostensibly massive bout with his trademark octopus head and flag, he instead sported a t-shirt and a glum expression, and he hasn't worked for Tony Khan since as of recording. Number 6, Demolition AX 1990. The Demolition Man was finishing up with the company after several years and 3 strong reigns as a tag team champion, and though he was going out on his back in an extremely basic fashion, he was doing so with the least menace he'd ever portrayed. With no obvious Taz man, minimal detail on the face paint, and most notably no sparkly product on his hair, slicking it back. Bill Eadie looked more like he was dressing up in his old gimmick to entertain some children for a big day out, rather than attempting to get the better of the Ultimate Warrior, Texas Tornado, and the Legion of Doom, which, based on how he was squashed in the Thanksgiving tradition, was pretty much what happened. And thanks for checking out this video today too. And if you're not finished with us yet, then tap on that subscribe button down below, you lovely person. Number 5, Razor Ramon, 1996. When Scott Hall passed away, it was remarked upon just how cool the man was even during what's consensus considered the least coolest period in the history of the industry. Razor Ramon sparkled not just because he always wore gold, but because he was at the very least a film star rather than a cartoon character. Hall might have stolen liberally from the silver screen, but in a promotion ran by a man with no cultural frame of reference and a fan base that didn't care about the plagiarism, he was diamond sharp, years removed from playing a diamond stud. At least he was until a loss to Vader at In Your House Good Friends Better Enemies. He neither looked nor particularly felt much like the bad guy, and he was tacitly telling fans that it was time to get used to that. A scalp for the Mastodon and nothing much more on the night, Ramon was seeing out his dates fresh off a WrestleMania suspension absence that he felt was cynically motivated by his impending departure. Number 4, Ahmed Johnson, 1998. Everything about Ahmed Johnson's Royal Rumble 1998 performance spoke to a man that was substantially closer to the exit door than the main event of WrestleMania, wearing about 15 leg supports, and the expression of a performer that knew how the next 10 minutes were about to play out. The fire Johnson had been able to breathe into the upper mid-card 2 years earlier had sadly been extinguished by a number of injuries, and the industry completely transforming underneath him. Sluggish on offense and the sell, Ahmed was eliminated just before Stone Cold Steve Austin arrived to take out the entire field, but suffered a one-man burial at the hands of former stablemate Karma. Exiting where the Supreme Fighting Machine entered, Ahmed ate a shove in the chest from the future Godfather, then shrugged and slumped off to the back. It was his penultimate WWE pay-per-view, with his last falling just 1 month later. Number 3, Hercules, 1992. When you're called Hercules for a living, your job is to be and look as hard as a rock as often as possible. But after 6 strong years with nicknames such as The Mighty and Power, the time had arrived for man behind the gimmick Ray Hernandez to look anything but either. In a Madison Square Garden loss to the similarly monstrous Sid Justice in February 1992. But he didn't really want to do that, so what then? He did the honors, but that was about all he did, baby. Placing his hands behind his head for the powerbomb and stacked cover, Hercules popped up almost immediately after the finish. Sid, en route to facing Hulk Hogan in one half of the WrestleMania 8 main event, was told to leave the ring and cut his post-match promo to avoid cameras catching the no-sell in all its glory. Number 2, CM Punk 2013. It'll be a long time before the novelty of CM Punk's 2023 WWE return wears off, but for a pained reminder of how it could all go if the company ends up normalizing the magic, take a look at his December 2013 run to see a man on the edge. As he infamously recounted in The Art of Wrestling Incineration of his final years with the company, he was required to keep Roman strong while beating the Shield, was suffering as a character from the stuttering conclusion to his feuds with Paul Heyman and the Wyatt family, and appeared to be the latest babyface about to eat an awful lot of authority beatdowns before facing Triple H at WrestleMania. Promos found him trying to explain away Daniel Bryan's abrupt defection to Bray Wyatt's cult, barely keeping kayfabe and begging fans to keep cheering for him nevertheless. A memorable car crash Monday Night Raw Championship celebration segment found him laughing at the obnoxious refusal of the McMahons to acknowledge the star on the rise rather than the tired ones in the ring. Darkly amusing at points in hindsight, this was the real and bleak deconstruction of the man behind the mythology in real time. Here's hoping things work out this time, eh? Number 1, Shawn Michaels, 1998. As he walked the aisle for what he knew could possibly be the last time ever, Shawn Michaels looked done and dusted during every wince-inducing second of his WrestleMania 14 loss to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Some saw it as karmic retribution for the various suffering he caused others during an enormously controversial decade as one of the company's most tempestuous and temperamental talents. But surely many of his peers had to feel sympathy as he gritted his teeth to dust in agony with every step he took. Having clipped his back on a casket at the 1998 Royal Rumble, exasperating a hard-living and injury-ravaged body in the process, Michaels took the run-up to WrestleMania off just to be fit enough to get out there and earn the sort of payday he'd missed out on during the lean years. The less said about his willingness to do the job, the better, but it was remarkable how he managed to do everything else bell to bell. They call him Mr. WrestleMania for a reason, folks. Did you enjoy this 10 times times wrestlers told you they were finished video? Then check out this 10 WWE wrestlers who immediately told you they were losing one. Simon Miller's in it. Bye bye.